Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Please let me know if you can hear me and drop a one in the chat to start things off. Ah, nice. It's always a great start. Volume's good. Video's probably good. Wow, everyone has got some amazing Friday energy today. The Friday after Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I'm really surprised we have people joining. Like, this is not what I would do on my main Friday. So this is fantastic. I have a quick question. I would love to know. I just posted this poll on LinkedIn. So if you're a big fan of LinkedIn, definitely go fill out this poll. But would you prefer, if you had to pick one to watch for the rest of your life, would you rather watch The Grinch, Jim Carrey version, or Elf? Yes, nice. Someone already answered Elf before I finished the question. Right? I have a thesis that the movie is directly correlated with a person's outlook on life. So this is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to pull up our slides and we will start pretty soon. If everyone could let me know if you have the slides, that would be fantastic. Okay, great. All right, so I wanted to set some context on this topic. One, it is not a glamorized topic. There's only so many fun images you can put into a slideshow about tacos. So my vision for this presentation was to be a little bit more detailed and to provide everyone the opportunity to really download the presentation and follow through later on, especially as you're analyzing your accounts, or if you're an agency and you're looking at your brand's accounts and you need to learn how to communicate tacos better. That was my vision for this presentation. So not as fun, not as glamorous, but really, really detailed. I think it's around 68 slides of just specific walkthroughs, screenshots from within the account. So keep that in mind. And we are, I think, pretty much good to go. So I'm going to kick things off. How to optimize your tacos to drive greater profitability. And let's see here. So the reason tacos is such an important conversation, especially as of late, is because tacos is one of the best indicators we have of the relationship between your advertising dollars and your organic rank. So this has been a really hot topic for pretty much everyone lately. And I thought this was really unique. I ran a poll on LinkedIn the other day, and out of curiosity, I was like, hey, what tacos is your brand running at? We had around 340 votes, and 35% of those people said 10 to 15%. So I'm going to pause for a little bit and actually add one of the polls that we put together and ask you all the exact same question. What is your average tacos? What are you seeing for either your client accounts or for your personal accounts? And does it align with these numbers? Fantastic. It looks to be pretty similar, but no one has said 0 to 5% yet, which probably makes sense because if you're under 5%, you may not enjoy this webinar. Now, I think this data is super important because not only is it about educating and potentially lowering your tacos, but it's also really important to understand what all the other brands are seeing and if it's even realistic to try to lower your tacos right now. Along with education, we've done a lot of work with brands of just asking them what their long-term goals are. So that way I can really answer their questions to better align with what they're trying to accomplish long-term. So I'll kind of leave that. If you have any questions along the way, I'll probably be stopping and answering some of them when it's aligned with the content. So definitely feel free to throw your questions in the chat. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A for everything outside of tacos, or if you want to ask about some of the new rollouts, the future vision of Amazon ads, we will be there for that as well. So looks like our poll is pretty close to what we're seeing here. 10 to 15% is the greatest. Quite a few people are greater than 20% as well. We have one person 0 to 5%. So we may bring them on stage and ask them for some advice, but everything looks pretty good. I wanted to throw this slide in here as well. Cumulative, I would assume that we're all managing over probably $200 to $300 million in Amazon spend across the people on this slide. So it was another really good indicator of what's the industry saying, and am I running my brands close to what everyone else is? This is unique because TACoS has increased quite a bit year over year. In the past, we saw less than 5% was ideal, and then we saw 5 to 10% was really good for growth. And now we're seeing much closer to that 10 to 15% range. The reason TACoS is super important, again, is because it's a two-part equation. Not only is it about your advertising spend, which is the area most people like to focus on, but it also is considering your sales. So there's been quite a few variables that have influenced both of these sides. On the expenses side and the ad spend side, we've seen CPCs increase. We've seen shipping costs increase. We've seen a greater focus on top of search. And we've seen terms of service changes where it's a lot more difficult to drive search, find, buy traffic to Amazon because some of these things weren't within terms of service. And that caused more people to spend money on focusing on organic rank. On the sales side, we've seen competition increase, which has decreased our potential sales. We've seen oversaturation. We've seen organic placements actually go lower on the page, and we've seen ranking struggles across the board. One thing I think that is super important to understand is that even if we're spending the same amount of money as last year, we're probably driving less in sales because we've seen a decrease in advertising efficiency. Now, this plays a really big role in TACoS, and a lot of people don't realize it. And this is kind of a good example of, let's say our conversion rate has stayed the exact same as it did in 2015 and in 2022. With CPCs increasing, this means that our ACoS has probably went from 11% to 45%, all because of cost per clicks, which are driven from competitors increasing their bids. So a lot of brands are like, hey, I'm doing the exact same thing that I've always done. I'm adjusting my bids, but my ACoS is a lot worse. Why is that? I'm like, well, because competition's on the platform. So this is a really big indicator of what our advertising efficiency looks like. And it's playing a big role in our TACoS as well, because again, if we're spending the same amount of money, but we're driving less in sales, our advertising efficiency has decreased. So when we're looking at TACoS, how do you improve your TACoS? Well, there's two really big variables here. One, by decreasing ad spend. That is the one that most people look to and would prefer. The second one is by increasing organic sales. This is the better answer, and this is the long-term solution, but this one's a lot more difficult to achieve. So how do you decide which one of those is more important and is going to make the greatest difference? Well, the first thing that we want to do is identify where our sales are coming from. So again, step one, identify where your sales are coming from. What are your ad sales divided by your organic sales? If over 50% of your sales are coming from ads, what's going to happen when you lower your spend? You're going to see a decrease in revenue. So this is really important to understand because as an agency, we get a ton of people coming to us saying, hey, we're spending way too much money. We need to cut back. We need to be more efficient with our spend. And it's our job to have that conversation of, well, we can 100% do this, but you're potentially going to see a decrease in organic sales. So this is a really important conversation so that way we can set expectations appropriately. Now, another variable with this is if we decrease our sales because we decrease our spend, we may see our organic rank actually start to drop. There's been a lot of really awesome case studies by large brands that have said, hey, we pulled back all of our advertising spend because we organically ranked incredibly well and organic sales still dropped. That's because Amazon has become more pay to play, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So step one, where are your sales coming from? Are they coming from ads? Are they coming organically? Step two, and this is one of my favorite things to walk through, ask yourself, how are your customers finding my listing? So I walk through this with my brands. Go to Amazon.com, type in your main keywords, scroll until you see your listings. Now type in a few of your other keywords, scroll some more. Where are you ranked on the page and what does page one look like? Now, if you're not in the top organic 8 placements for most of your keywords, how are people seeing your listing? It's typically being driven from Amazon advertising, which is what we're focusing on now. and hopefully being driven from external advertising. But the top 8 is so much more important than ever before because page 1 is saturated with ads. 2 years ago, you could be on page 1 and still get a ton of volume and a ton of traffic. Nowadays, it's not so much. Now, if you are ranked in the top 8, then you can wait until we get to slide 46, because this is where we're going to be discussing about decreasing your ad spend. But if you're not ranked in the top 8, this should be your number one focus in building your brand, is how to get in the top 8 for your top keywords, or how to drive traffic to your page that you can afford. So let's take a look at what page 1 looks like. I typed in toothpaste. First thing I see is a very large headline search ad, and then I see 4 organic ranked products. If I were to scroll a little bit further, I would typically see the top 4 organically ranked products. But directly below that, I have a sponsored product carousel, and then I have a sponsored brand video. The top 50% of page 1 is ads. This is a major reason why TACoS is increasing, because customers are seeing ads before they're ever seeing the organic placements on the page. Everything above the fold is a sponsored ad, which is very, very important to understand, because when a customer types in any of your main keywords, they are seeing a ton of ads. So yes, the ideal answer is to not spend money on Amazon advertising, but the way the algorithm is set up right now and the way page 1 is set up right now, that's just not a viable solution for building your brand, because if you're not paying for these ads, someone else is. Now, that's not fantastic news, but I'm not here to close deals by presenting a shiny object of a magic solution. I'm here to be really real about what managing a brand on Amazon looks like. So when navigating Amazon, the first thing a customer sees is a page full of ads. This has shifted TACoS exponentially. Now, what about the rest of the search results? That's something that comes up all the time of, let's just lower our bids. That way we can improve efficiency. And lowering your bids is fine, but what typically happens when you lower your bid is you start showing up on page 2 or page 3, or you show up on the product detail page. All of these are fantastic ad placements to have. They're usually going to be a lot cheaper, but do they get as much visibility? And the answer is no. So PacView released this incredible data, which states that the top 3 placements, click share on Amazon, drive 70% of click share. So these 3 placements are driving 70% of clicks on Amazon. So we can kind of let that sink in for a bit. If my ads are showing up on page 2 or page 3, they're going to be really profitable, potentially. But they're not going to drive near as much volume as these 3 placements or the top 4 organically ranked placements. And when you're considering organic rank on Amazon, it all comes down to volume. So when you're bidding on the product detail pages or rest of search, you're driving profitability, but you're probably not improving your organic rank a ton because you're driving such little volume. It's not moving the needle compared to everyone who's in the top 8 placements. And to the question of 70% of clicks, how much sales? Well, obviously it's going to be relative to the brand's conversion rate. So if you're having, a very strong brand presence and you're going to be converting a ton, that's also going to be driving the majority of sales. But for the point of this, it's driving volume. That is the core focus when we're considering TACoS and organic rank. And we'll dive into more of these specifics in a little bit. But again, ask yourself, if I'm not advertising aggressively and I'm not ranked in the top 1 to 8 placements, how is my brand getting seen? That is the question to ask. Whether it's driving traffic through Amazon ads, or if you can't afford that traffic, driving traffic from externally, that's the problem that most people are having, and really what brands need to solve right now. So if I'm not ranked well, how are my listings getting seen? PPC is the easiest way to do that, which brings us back to the main point of, how do I improve my TACoS? Well, probably can't decrease spend a ton because we know my top line sales are going to drop, and we know that it's one of the most visible areas of Amazon. So how do I increase my overall sales? Well, we've established we're potentially too reliant on PPC, but cutting back on spend greatly reduces traffic, which we're not willing to do. So what steps should we be taking to improving overall sales? Well, let's discuss organic rank on Amazon and how you improve that rank through PPC. If you all want a very in-depth video on organic rank on Amazon, I have this on YouTube. We'll drop the link in the chat. It comes down to volume, click-through rate, relevancy. But using kind of that concept, let's talk about PPC spin organic rank. So when we set up rank campaigns, we want to identify our best keywords and drive as much volume as possible to those keywords, right? Now, this is a really unique space because oftentimes what I'll see people do is throw all of their top keywords in a campaign like this. They'll spend $100 and it's going to be, distributed and diluted across all of those keywords. This is not the right way to look at rank because most of the time the volume is so high in a category, we can't actually afford to do that. The appropriate answer is to get very precise on the keywords that you think you need to rank for and then put them in their own campaigns and drive a ton of traffic to those keywords. And how do we do that? Well, again, probably focus on top of search, focus on some of the data that leads us to this. Here's another important variable. The more high converting volume you drive, the quicker you're going to rank. Now, a lot of people can't afford to do that. We'll set up these campaigns and we'll see that there's a ton of traffic clicking on those keywords, so we can't afford to go all in, right? We can't spend $50,000 on the term chapstick in a week-long period in order to match the volume of the products that are ranked well. So what we're going to have to do is go slow and steady, which is perfectly fine. But if you go slow and steady, you have to understand that you're driving less volume relative to the top 4. So it's going to take longer to rank. This is a very key part and probably one of the things that I'm having to deal with most as a brand manager is setting expectations of, hey, the number one product on the page is doing $20,000 in sales a day. You can only afford through PPC to drive 5,000 sales a day, which means it's going to take you a lot longer to rank and to justify your conversion rate and your relevancy to Amazon. So when we find those keywords, we're going to set aside budget and create specific campaigns for improving rank. So we create campaigns strictly for rank so that way we can control the traffic and the spin to these keywords. For everyone who's been in this space for a long time, you used to be able to give away like 1,000 units and you were going to improve your rank pretty quickly. And with that 1,000 units, you knew exactly how much you were going to spend. PPC is pretty similar. You should be setting aside budget for these rank keywords and then tracking performance over time. And if you're on a limited budget as a brand, you may need to pull spin from some of your long tail profitability focused keywords and put them into your ranking campaigns. So what keywords should I be trying to rank on? What keywords have you identified as most important to your business? As a brand owner, you know what keywords customers are going to Amazon, typing in, and converting on for your product. We need to take those keywords and we need to check our current PPC data, use things like search query and brand metrics to make sure we're converting well relative to category, and then make sure our listing is optimized for those keywords. The second question is, can we afford the PPC traffic for those keywords? We can use CPC data and impression share data to really dive into this, but there's a lot of times where people don't understand how expensive a keyword is. So they set aside budget, they create a campaign for it, and then they win less than 5% impression share. So they never drive enough volume for that keyword to send a signal to Amazon that it needs to be improving its organic rank. Now, before I dive into examples, let me kind of stop, pause for a minute and take a look at the chat and see if there's anything that has came up. So let me know if you have any questions up until this point. Does volume mean high search volume keywords or low search volume, high conversion rate? So we're going to dive into this a little bit, but in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of figuring out what you want to rank on is whether or not you're converting well. We all know Amazon will not show an ad to a customer if it's not relevant, or they may, but then they're going to pull it off really quick because Amazon doesn't want to show customers bad products because then the customers are going to have a bad experience and they're not going to buy that product. So when we're looking at everything, the first thing we're considering is conversion rate. Are we converting better than the category on this keyword? If yes, then we're going to consider the search volume. If we have a lot of money to afford the rank, we're going to try to rank on higher search volume keywords. If we don't have a lot of budget set aside, we should try to rank on lower search volume keywords, but knowing it's going to take longer to improve our organic sales because low search volume keywords aren't going to drive as much volume as mid to high tier keywords. At what point do you decide you're unable to rank in the top 8? Well, I think it really comes down to how expensive a keyword is if we're relying on PPC. And we'll dive into this in a little bit. Under 5, oh, there's a lot of questions and it's moving the chat. So being under 5% impression share, is it a sign that your listing is improving its ranking organically? Impression share is only correlated with ads. So I'll kind of show you what this means in a little bit. How do you know a term is super relevant in search query performance? Typically, it is based by your customer's purchase history. Customers wouldn't be converting on your product if it was completely irrelevant, but this is also where you need to kind of use the diligence as a brand owner to say, hey, I get that customers are converting on this, but maybe my listing's not optimized for that style of customer. And then you can really kind of decide past that point whether or not they're relevant keywords. How can you calculate how expensive a keyword is? Well, you can go into your Amazon advertising and look at suggested bids. Whether or not people love that answer, it's a really good indicator of how high CPCs can get. And then you can also test for one day. This is one of my biggest recommendations is, let's say I want to, rank on the keyword red marker. Create a campaign, set a really high bid, and typically within 5 to 10 minutes after adjusting a bid on a sponsored product keyword, you can see your ad directly adjust on the page. So if I'm bidding on red marker and I want to win top of search, I can set a $40 bid and win that ad placement almost immediately. So I'll update my bid, refresh my page, and go look at that sponsored ad placement on the page. That's how you can calculate how expensive a category is and what that top of search cost or price is going to be for your keywords. Now, before I dive into some of these other keywords or some of these other answers, let's kind of go back to the examples I'm going to use of how you figure out whether or not you should be ranking on a keyword. So one of the things that I like to use is the targeting tab. It's one of my new favorite tabs in Amazon ads. We used to have to open up 28 different tabs of campaigns just to see what our targets are within those campaigns. The targeting tab allows us to see that now. So when I'm considering where I want to rank, one of the first things I'm going to do is decide, am I converting well for these keywords? So bacon press is a perfect example. I'm converting at a 27% advertising conversion rate. That's really strong. At the end of this slideshow, I'll show you how you can say, hey, that's good compared to category. But for this purpose, I can say, yes, I do think I have opportunity to rank on this keyword because I'm converting really well. Customers click on my ad and they buy my product. That is 100% one of the most important traffic signals you can send to Amazon. So green check mark, we're good to go. Now, can I afford the PPC traffic for this keyword? Now, this one's a little bit harder. A lot of people struggle to conceptualize top of search impression share. But by looking at this data right here, I can see it's a pretty affordable keyword because at $1.28 bid, I'm winning around 40% of top of search impression share. And it's a profitable ACoS. So I would increase my bid to $4 to $5 in this scenario. So that way I'm winning, 80 to 90% top of search impression share. And I'm converting so well that I'm going to set this campaign aside. I'm going to name it rank. I'm going to focus on exact match. I'm going to focus on top of search, and I'm going to drive high volume. Because the two most important traffic signals, again, are volume, because Amazon needs data to justify improving your organic rank, and 2, conversion rate. So I have both of those. I'm going to set aside this campaign. I'm going to set a really high bid, and then I'm going to track my organic rank through one of the many tools in the space or something like Search Query, which actually shows me my brand share percentage. There's a lot of different variables for setting up your campaigns like this. One thing to note is your ACoS may be bad. You may take a loss on this keyword because it can be really expensive, but that's okay because your TACoS is going to stay the same because as your ad spend's increasing, your organic sales are going to increase at almost relatively the same pace. Now, it may take some time for this. You may take a loss for a few weeks on this keyword, but as long as that organic rank increases over time, then you're in a good spot. And once your organic rank increases, you can start decreasing your bids and budgets for your rank campaigns a little bit. Now let's take a look at a bad example. Then we'll stop and we'll kind of do another round of questions. So let's ask ourselves, are we converting well for this keyword? Well, for this example, no. A less than 10% advertising conversion rate is pretty poor in most categories. So I can see, hey, I shouldn't be trying to rank on this keyword. Let's not set it into a rank campaign. One, my conversion rate is absolutely terrible. Just from a common sense perspective, I can see that this keyword is way too broad. I'm going to be competing against a ton of other CPG products. It does not make sense, and I don't have the budget to try to rank on this keyword. So I should be pulling back my spend, lowering my budgets on this keyword. And a secondary aspect is I can't afford to rank on this keyword. At 44 cents, I'm winning less than 5% impression share, which tells me that my ad is showing up on page 2, page 3, page 4, or on the product detail page. So in order to win 20 to 30% impression share, I probably need to increase my bid to $2 to $3. And I'm already not performing well at 44 cents because my conversion rate is so bad. So if I increase my bid to $2 to $3, my conversion rate is probably not going to increase that much, but I'm going to be paying so much more and losing more money. And for what purpose? Because it's not going to improve my organic rank because my CVR is so bad. So this is really important to understand when you're looking at whether or not you should be focusing on certain keywords for a rank. Your conversion rate and then your impression share and CPC can help you calculate how expensive that's going to be and whether or not it'll actually improve your organic side of the business. So why is this keyword not a good fit? We're converting poorly, so it's more than likely going to hurt our organic rank. Now, again, this is relative to category. If you're in apparel, a 5% conversion rate is probably going to be pretty decent. But for this instance, it's a terrible keyword. Our impression share is low relative to bid, meaning we're going to have to bid a lot higher in order to drive volume. And it's just nowhere near profitable. Our conversion rate and our CPC is such a bad combination that we should not be trying to organically rank. So I'm going to answer some questions here. What percent of impression share do you aim for? This is an interesting one because it's pretty relative to how much volume is being driven in a category. Because once you win the page 1 bid, it all comes down to budget. And as an example, for one of the keywords I calculated last month, it would have cost us over $100,000 in spend in one keyword just to own that placement 100% of the time. And I can, if this is who I think it is, I can send you how we calculate impression share and the spend needed to win a placement with a variable impression share. How to push those keywords which are being stuck on point 10. Almost all of your placement on the page comes down to bid every single time. I know there's a lot of different opinions of the variables of this, but as long as you have a relevant product and a relevant keyword, you can just bid high to get to page 1. And a lot of people will be like, my bid is high. It's higher than suggested. I'm still not winning. You got to realize those top 4 placements are for people who are really willing to pay for that placement. So if you don't believe me, go in and set a $30 to $40 bid and watch it for 1 hour. And you can almost always see your ads start showing up in page 1. Now, don't leave it there. That's really dangerous and you're going to lose a lot of money. But that's going to allow you to see what the ceiling is for your CPC because you're not going to pay $40 typically. You're going to pay, that second most bid. So you're going to be able to see, hey, this placement cost me $8. I can't afford to rank on this keyword. Maybe I should be looking at longer tail keywords. And then as your organic increases on those, you can shift your focus over. Do single keyword campaigns help more increasing rank? So it's not like Amazon says, hey, this is a great campaign structure. I'm going to improve rank. In reality, we run single keyword campaigns so I can control my budget. So I can work with my brand and say, hey, this keyword is set aside. This is how much budget I'm giving it. And this is how we're going to track our organic rank. So it's more about the management and budget forecasting than it is influencing our rank. Does it make sense to connect a sponsor product targeting report back to search query performance? 100%. This is something we're working on our end. And I think the brands that get this right are going to be the best moving forward because what your search query performance actually shows you is your brand share. And brand share is super important because not only does it help you understand your rank, but it also helps you understand if the category is shrinking. Maybe less people are looking for pins. And we've never really had a great way of knowing that. We've always just assumed our organic rank dropped. But being able to actually say, hey, there's less people searching in a category is going to be exponentially beneficial. Now, I'm going to go back to the slides real fast. So we have our keywords identified. How do we set up these keywords? So we typically run, one keyword per campaign, one ad group for control. We put rank within the campaign name. We run exact match, so that way I'm not showing up for random keywords I'm not trying to rank on. We set a competitive bid and we use top of search focus. Now, from our perspective, we do typically work with larger brands. So this may skew our perception of this, but I would much rather always win that number one placement because I know it's the highest volume placement on the page other than the organic placements, and then control how much I'm spending with my budget. So that could be kind of confusing for people, but I want to win that number one placement. That's the goal of a rank campaign, in my opinion, is because that number one sponsored product placement looks identical to the organic placement. So it's a really good indicator for converting well in that position. And then if I can't afford to stay in budget all day, that's okay. Because for really competitive categories, makeup, supplements, things like that, you're not going to be able to afford to stay in budget all day usually. So what we want to do is set budget aside and forecast based off our conversion rate. Hey, if I spend $1,000, I'm going to drive $2,000 in sales per day. The four organically ranked products are doing around $3,000 to $4,000 per day, which means I'm going to be in pretty close competition with them. So I should see my organic increase, right? It's all volume. It's all conversion rate. Now, one thing I'm going to reiterate, this is the most difficult part about this conversation. The goal of these campaigns is driving high amounts of traffic to your top converting keywords. It's not about profitability, and it probably won't be about profitability because I don't see Amazon advertising getting that much cheaper in the future. You want to rank quicker? Drive more traffic. Higher bids, higher budgets. If you can't afford to drive a ton of traffic, slow and steady. Lower your budget, potentially lower your CPCs. Maybe you can win that number 4 placement and still drive decent amounts of volume. But it's all about your structure that's going to allow you to really control your results in this scenario. Now, let's stop really fast because this is a really interesting concept that has been hard to describe. So I'm going to try to do a good job of it. So why do these campaigns usually have a high ACoS? They're our most important keywords. We know we're converting well on them, but why is the ACoS so high? Well, again, ranking campaigns, the goal is maximizing traffic. And as we know, Amazon's becoming more and more pay to play. So those 4 placements that are sponsored products usually come down to bid. So if we know we have to bid high, then as you can see in this example right here, we're going to see probably like a 67% ACoS, right? But we can't lower our bid because then our volume decreases because now we're showing up on page 3 or 4. So we're not really getting great exposure. So how do we improve our ACoS when we can't lower our bid? Well, the number one most important thing you could do is improve your conversion rate. And this is, I believe, the direction the whole industry is going because I can't control my competitors' spend in their bids. So how do I improve my ACoS if I still have to bid high? You have to improve your conversion rate, which is going to come down to aligned targeting. Maybe instead of targeting red marker, which is going to cost me $5, I can target red marker for college students. And my whole listing is optimized for college students, right? It's got a kid in a backpack. It's got all these things that's going to improve my conversion rate on that term. That's going to improve my profitability. 5 years ago, we could bid really low and we could bid really wide and target all of these keywords and still be profitable and still have a great TACoS. Nowadays, the natural progression and maturity of the platform is causing costs to increase. So if you can't justify lowering your bid because then your volume tanks and then your revenue tanks, we're going to have to focus on improving our conversion rate, which I think is going to cause us to have to be much more precise, figure out those kind of riches are in the niches, all those areas that we have opportunity to maybe do better in. I think that's the direction a lot of people are going to have to go. So let's go back to this data. Top 3 placement click share on Amazon, 70% of click share. When we're setting up rank campaigns, we focus on these placements because they're driving the most amount of volume. So what happens when we lower our bid? Well, our ad's probably not on the first page, which means we're going to see a major drop off in sales, which means it's going to take us a lot longer to rank because we're going to need to collect more data in order to give Amazon a positive signal for organic rank. So to kind of summarize this segment, profitability and rank campaigns, ACoS should not be a focus. If you're shifting budget from your other campaigns in order to invest in rank, your total account ACoS is, well, your account ACoS is probably going to increase because now you're spending less on profitability campaigns and spending more on these expensive CPC campaigns. In the short term, your ACoS may increase, but in the long term, your TACoS will decrease. And if you have a limited budget for PPC, this is where you may have to get creative with your budget distribution. I see this with really large brands. They want to cover all of their brand name and cover these defensive segments because they're really profitable and they show a great ROAS, which is great. But when you're on a limited budget, you may need to shift money away from your auto campaigns and your sponsored display campaigns and your brand campaigns in order to pay for these organic rank campaigns. And yes, in the short term, it's going to be a loss, but in the long term, you're going to grow your revenue when your organic rank increases. And that's what's going to cause or allow brands to be successful in the future. Let me check questions real fast before I dive in this. Which bidding strategy do you prefer for ranking campaigns? Absolutely fantastic point. So I did not cover this. I typically just run fixed bidding across the board, and I typically recommend running fixed bidding across the board if you're working with software, because I don't want Amazon adjusting my bid and then also having a software adjust my bid on top of it. I think it makes it hard to predict an outcome. So I almost always focus on fixed bidding. Can you link case studies for brands putting dedicated money to one keyword? I will cover one quick case study in a little bit. Is there a way to see how many sales or conversions we need on a certain keyword before deciding to go all in? Somewhat, but not quite. So I think search query is really beneficial and brand metrics is really beneficial for this. I won't cover this until the end of the presentation. I have YouTube videos on this if you're not going to stay that long. Pretty much you can take the assumption of, hey, if the top 4 organically ranked placements are driving an average of 10,000 units a day and they're converting at 10%, you can assume you need to convert at the same or better than they are and get close to the volume that they are, whether that's over an extended period of time or in a short window. That's the best way to see. Is there a way to see impression share in the targeting tab? There is not, but you can segment out your campaigns and open them up in separate windows, or you can pull your impression share reports and build a pivot table around search terms so that way you can directly see your search term level impression share and conversion rate in one view. Nice. Someone in this chat is answering like most of the questions and it's fantastic. Also 100% yes, there will be a replay available as well as a download because I know I'm throwing a lot of content at you. Okay, let's go back to this before I get to the rest of the questions. So search query brand share has came up a ton in the chat. It is one of Amazon's newest reporting types. It's not available for vendors, which is a major miss on Amazon's part and really, really frustrating. But what it allows us to do is to select an ASIN and see the search term that is driving sales for that ASIN. So one of the biggest complaints of Amazon the last 5 years is we didn't have that data. Now we do. Here's an example from an account. You can clearly see, hey, here's the search terms. This is for the whole brand, not for an ASIN. That's why it's all over the place. But you can you can export this data and you can make assumptions of, hey, this is how this search term is converting and this is how the category is converting. Here's my brand share. So we've been overlaying our rank campaigns with brand share. So we say, hey, I have this rank campaign for cheese slicer. My brand share is 20%. Let's spend more money on this keyword and then track my brand share week over week. Ideally, your brand share increases. That's how you know you have a good term. But if it doesn't increase, you can assume one, your organic has not increased or the actual category has shrank. So maybe less people are searching. So it's a really fantastic indicator of, hey, how am I doing relative to the category? Here's a case study and example. I have a yield sign on this because this is an extreme example. We have very, very high budgets. This is a high LTV. This is a brand that focuses a lot on brand awareness and external marketing. So I would not stress, I'm not recommending anyone spend this type of CPC unless it aligns with your overall strategy. But we spent a ton of money over the whole period of time. It was $65,000, but we primarily focused on a 2-week period of time with Prime Day where our conversion rate was much better. And our organic rank increased from number 8 to number 3, which is a really large jump on page 1 because now you're actually above that sponsored product carousel and your sponsor brands video. Our TACoS stayed the same. So this is a really important understanding of we spent a lot more. So you would think our TACoS would increase, but our TACoS actually stayed the same because we saw such a large jump in organic revenue when we went from 8 to 3 that it justified this. Once that organic revenue increased, we were actually able to go back in, decrease our budgets for this campaign. We only want to spend a couple hundred a day rather than a couple thousand. And then that caused our overall TACoS to finally start decreasing because we were organically ranked so well. And then a lot of people will say, well, if I decrease my ads after this, then I'm driving less volume, so my organic rank will start decreasing again. Well, not quite, because once you're in the top 4, you're getting maximum visibility like you are with those top 4 sponsored product ads. So you're still driving almost the same volume. So ACoS increased a ton, but our TACoS decreased. That is the key part of this slide and why it's so important to understand the push and the pull between advertising and organic rank. Now, some people can't afford that. And this is a really important conversation to have. A lot of brands cannot justify or afford that type of traffic, even if their conversion rate is amazing. So what do you do then? This is a perfect example pulled directly from an account. On paper, these keywords look amazing. 34% advertising conversion rate, 31%, 38%. But their CPCs are so high that they just can't justify trying to organically rank on these products. Some brands can. Some brands, you just cannot justify that, especially if you're in a very cash flow intensive point of time. So this is where communication with whoever's running your PPC is really important because a PPC manager can't make this decision for you per se. I mean, ideally your organic rank increases enough, but if you can't afford this, then you need to be looking at other keywords that are more long tail, more niche, cheaper, and you potentially have a higher conversion rate. As an example, this keyword directly below. This is something we should probably try to invest in increasing our organic rank. But also, this is where it's so important to know your top keywords may not be profitable because it's so much more pay to play than ever before. So if your volume is decreasing year over year and month over month, it's probably because of one of these reasons of, hey, it's just too expensive and you're not organically ranked well, which is a catch-22. So if this is the case, I'm recommending looking at external traffic options because Amazon advertising is becoming so much more expensive. And we see the value of it. We now know why it's so expensive. It's like the #1 placement in all of e-commerce. But if you can't afford that traffic, maybe it's time to start looking elsewhere, even for your organic rank. And it's still the same strategy, same setup. Find your keywords and then figure out if you can drive external traffic from Google to Amazon or TikTok to Amazon or Facebook and Instagram to Amazon. Yes, your conversion rate's probably going to be quite a bit lower, but if your CPC is a lot lower, you may still have the same cost per acquisition. So we don't do anything in this area to an extent, but it's a conversation we've had to have with more and more brands. If you can't afford to drive the traffic to Amazon, as a PPC manager, there's only so much I can do. I can lower my bids, but then your volume's going to decrease. And a lot of people don't love that answer. So it's either increase your conversion rate or find cheaper ways to acquire traffic. All right, I think this is a pause point. So let me scroll through and see if we have any other questions. Oh, this is actually great for a poll. Taylor, if you're on, can you drop a poll on what other external traffic sources people are using? Be very interested to hear that and get some feedback on that. Great question. Are rank campaigns only sponsored products? This is always a hot topic in the groups. So again, volume, in my opinion, is one of the most important factors, volume and conversion rate. And sponsored products typically drive highest volume and highest conversion rate. We do run sponsored brands headline ads, like the top of search ones, for rank campaigns as well. But something you have to consider is your search and advertising is being diluted across 3 products. So you don't always know what product they're going to click in a headline ad. So that spend is a lot less precise when you don't know what's actually driving the product conversion. And that sponsored brand placement typically gets like 70% less sales. So it is an additional lever to pull. We do still run them, but it doesn't drive as much volume per ASIN per search term as sponsored products, which is why most of what we're talking about is sponsored products here. So if you're really in a pinch and you don't have the budget to afford both placements, I recommend sponsored products, unless no one in your category is running sponsored brands and they're really cheap. That could be a workaround, but that's kind of the main reason we push on sponsored products. All right, so the poll is posted if anyone wants to answer. One other great question I just saw was, does product targeting and sponsor brands video influence rank? So I would say, anything that drives a sale does potentially increase rank, whether it's external traffic, whether it's these unique ad types. But again, they're not driving as much precise volume. So it's diluted. It's not sending as strong of a signal as this search term, this ASIN converting. So that's where we recommend, if you are on a limited budget, maybe pulling some of your spend away from that ASIN targeting and putting it into your ranking campaigns in order to make up for that extra spend. Because your ASIN targeting, your video ads, all of these other ad types aren't as precise. So they're probably not going to influence your organic rank as much. All budget control does is make you stop showing up in the middle of the day, right? Potentially. But again, as a brand, most brands can afford to stay in budget all day. It's just way too expensive. And you're probably still showing up for that keyword in another campaign, but maybe that other campaign is focused on profitability. So if I'm bidding on red marker at a $20 bid, that's going to be my top of search bid. Once that campaign goes out of budget, your budget actually shifts to your other campaigns that are more efficiency focused. So if I have red marker with a $1 bid, I'm still showing up for it 24 hours of the day. But now I'm showing up on the PDP, page 2, page 3, as discussed. So now I'm achieving my profitability there. How much of your budget do you allocate towards your ranking campaigns versus other campaigns like brand defense? This is a great question. I don't think I can really answer it. I think it's dependent on your TACoS and your needs. I would put as much budget as possible to my rank campaigns if I could afford it, but that's not always the answer. So it's really kind of up to you to set your threshold. If you are majorly wanting to rank super quick and you have the capital to do it, then again, it's going to be related to your volume of your top 4 competitors. Lots of great discussions over here. Wow. We need to have a mastermind session. How long on average do you see TACoS improving? I have found it's really dependent on volume and how close you can get to the volume of your competitors, in all honesty. We have seen improving from like 6 to 4 within a week. It cost us $40,000, but we matched their volume, so it went really quickly. For brands who don't have that type of budget, it takes a lot more time because Amazon needs to see that historical volume in order to make sure they can justify that decision. For a rank campaign, how do you calculate the right fixed bid for the keywords? This is a great question. We like to make data-based decisions. So I always tell people, like, it doesn't really matter what your starting bid is, in all honesty. If it's too high, and you're not profitable at all, you're going to lower it. If you're not getting any impressions, you're going to increase it. I do use suggested bids to help give me a window of what it's going to cost though. But you got to think, suggested bids are calculating the top of search and averaging it out from the PDP, the carousel, page 2, page 3, page 4. So it gives you a decent window. Now, most of the time your suggested bids aren't even high enough to capture your top of search traffic. So I always just start a bid that I usually do a higher bid, and then I look every hour to see how expensive it's costing me, and then I decrease or increase as needed. Are you using the top of search percent increase or mostly bid? I typically do bid most of the time. Sometimes I'll apply a top of search increase if I know a brand has like any weird bid ups running on it. If they're running, a software outside of it, I'll want to override that with the top of search modifier, but bid typically does the job. What top of search percentage do you aim for? Again, it really depends on how much you can afford. We have some categories where that one keyword will literally cost us over $100,000 to get 100% top of search. So we can't necessarily justify that. Why limit the budget in this example and not lower the bids? Because if you lower the bids, you're not driving volume. Again, you're showing up on page 2, page 3, or page 4. So I want to drive maximum volume in the number one placement on the page. And again, once I limit the budget, all my other keywords are going to kick in once that's out of budget. So it's not like it stops. My ranking campaign is one sole purpose. It's high volume at the top of the page. If I lower my bid, I'm not getting that high volume, which is why another campaign will have that keyword and can be focused on profitability all day long. But it's not answering the question of, hey, how do I rank? Okay, so back to our slides. Let's say lowering TACoS when I am ranked well. Let's say you are ranked on page 1, or you may not even be ranked on page 1. There's still opportunity to lower your advertising spend. This is the answer that most people want me to solve right here. As a brand manager, everyone wants me to lower their spend. So I'm going to walk through some recommendations for this and how you can really answer this problem as well. Cannibalization and share of voice are really important concepts with this. I'm not going to dive too deep into those, but you can feel free to ask me questions. So one thing I'd recommend is finding the right balance. And this is up to brand owners. No PPC manager can answer this question for you. As you can see, in July, this brand hit $3.1 million in monthly sales, but their TACoS was at 15% and their advertising spend was at $470,000. You can see in October, they drastically decreased their spend down to $100,000 a month, but their TACoS was 5%, but their overall revenue is $1.8 million. So as a brand owner, it's really important to find that balance for you of, hey, where it's economies of scale on one hand, but also you've got to figure out where you are comfortable with your profitability and your investment. Now, one thing I will recommend all day long is not chasing a drastically low TACoS. That's easy for me to say when it's not my personal cash buying inventory month over month. But something we have seen more than anything else is when brands start chasing a low TACoS, after 6 to 12 months, they almost always decrease their share of voice and almost always see a negative flywheel where their organic sales and their organic rank starts decreasing. As you can see here, from June to October, sales dropped 40%, spend dropped 80%, TACoS dropped 67%. So this is a very healthy place to be. But the concern is if they continue running at this low of TACoS, their organic rank's going to decrease because, again, if you're not spending that money, someone else is, and someone else is potentially matching that volume. You can offset that by having a 10x better conversion rate than anyone else. Or you can offset that by driving external traffic and looking at all of your advertising and your organic sales as a blended TACoS model, which is what I'm going to recommend. Is if you don't think you can afford the PPC within your category, you may have to look elsewhere in order to match that volume from other traffic sources. So my organic rank is great. We've talked about understanding the balance between your profitability and your revenue. My TACoS is still high. Where should I be cutting back on spend? Well, one area, cut back on keywords that you rank well on. So as we can see, Death Wish Coffee's #1 ranked SKU is right here. And they're also running very aggressive sponsored product ads on that SKU. This is where we can assume cannibalization, because a customer may not scroll down to the organic to click and buy. They're going to inherently click this sponsored product ad. Now, I don't recommend just stopping your ads when you're organically ranked well, because what's going to happen is a brand like Wake the Hell Up is going to bid more aggressive and win this placement. And then you're going to lose market share over time. But what I do recommend is looking at your other SKUs, your other variations that you can put here, so that way you can cross-sell, build brand authority and brand awareness without having to worry near as much about cannibalization. Now, this is another reason why we run single ASIN campaigns. So that way I can strategically control what SKUs are showing up where. So if I saw this with this brand, I would recommend let's lower our bids, lower our budgets on our #1 SKU for this keyword. Let's increase our bids and budgets for our other SKUs. Maybe this more expensive count. That's a fantastic opportunity to upsell. It's not ranked in the top 4 over here. Maybe we do this instant coffee variation. Probably it's not as great of a product because it's a little bit cheaper, so you may not have as much margin, but this is kind of the way to look at your business in this scenario. Now, the #2 way, cut back on targets that are neither profitable or strategic. So this is one of the first things I audit when I'm looking at brands. I go into their targeting tab. I look at typically last 30 days and or year to date. I'll play between both of those windows and I'll say, hey, where are they spending the most on? So I'm going to click the columns button. I'm going to add conversion rate. And then I'm going to go top down by spend. This is an actual account I audited that has spent $46,000 on a category targeting campaign. Now, the reason this frustrates me so much is because a category targeting campaign is not going to improve my organic rank. There's nothing strategic about it other than driving brand awareness. And why wouldn't we do that with DSP? And it's hemorrhaging money. So auto campaigns, great area to improve your efficiency. Take all of the profitable search terms and move them over manual. Category campaigns, great way to improve your efficiency. Very broad keywords, great way to improve your efficiency. Cut back on all of these. A easy way to filter is going into your targeting tab, filter by conversion rate less than category average, and just figure out where your spend's going to. Pause, lower bids, make adjustments, but don't hemorrhage money on keywords that are neither profitable or strategic. Now, if you would have told me that this campaign was a rank campaign where I'm converting above average and maybe losing money, that would be a whole different story, because that advertising campaign is directly going to correlate with my organic sales. But a terribly converting category campaign is not. So definitely go into your targeting tab and view things from this angle. Another area is cut back on targets that are too expensive and you convert poorly on them. So one of the questions from Pablo was like the budget versus the bid adjustment. Like, when do I make that decision? Here's an example of this keyword converts very poorly, 2%. It's obviously below our overall advertising average, and it's really expensive. So filter by conversion rate less than average, CPC above $2 to $3, like whatever your threshold is, and immediately lower bids in those areas. Because again, they're not improving your organic rank if you're converting poorly on them. So they should only be bucketed into a profitability segment. So that's a really quick way to go into your targeting tab. Or if you're really good with macros, really good at building bid formulas, just pull your search term reports and run this pretty constantly. It's a great way to save on additional bleeding spend. And this keyword specifically would save us an additional $14,000, which is going to drastically improve our ACoS and our ROAS with one keyword. Fourth thing, make sure your highest spend targets are your top converting targets, even if they're profitable, even if they have a great ACoS. If you're converting really poorly on them, potentially just lower your budgets, lower your bids, because there's been quite a few different case studies on poor converting keywords actually decreasing your organic rank because you're sending a negative signal to Amazon. So even if your bid is 10 cents and it's got a 20% ACoS, maybe lower your bids and budgets on it. And again, targeting tab, conversion rate, top down by spend. These 4 viewpoints will quickly help save efficiencies and again, help improve your overall profitability and potentially increase your organic sales. Now, I'm going to go through questions really fast, and then I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of brand metrics and search query. I have a more in-depth walkthrough on YouTube. Let me answer some questions. Let me know if you have anything so far. Is the aim of driving external ads to Amazon to increase rank? How does the algo know which keyword to attribute that sale to? They necessarily don't, but Amazon loves external traffic. They love the idea of a customer being on TikTok and leaving TikTok and showing up on Amazon. That's why they have a brand referral bonus. So it's not necessarily going to be associated directly to a search term unless you have a canonical URL or any of the OG methods of building a landing page tied to a search term and tied to a landing or a PDP, which is a great way to qualify traffic. So Pablo again asked, when you drive external traffic to Amazon, how does the algorithm know which keyword to attribute that sale to? Well, a lot of people will build a landing page in between their TikTok ad and their Amazon page. And the reason they're going to do that is for one, qualify traffic. They don't want people just going from TikTok to Amazon and deciding not to purchase because it's too expensive. So they're going to build a landing page, which is going to help qualify that traffic. This is why you need my product. And then that landing page is going to drive a customer to Amazon based on a certain search term. Now there's other ways to do this. That one is not as easy to scale. You can just drive traffic to Amazon. You can use attribution links to track your spend and then use brand metrics to actually track your searches and your branded searches. That's something that we see a lot because attribution is pretty messy. But at the end of the day, it's really about kind of your unit economics and what your cost per acquisition is, because CPCs are getting so much more expensive. You may not be able to justify continuing to try to acquire that customer. So it's where can you find traffic potential that's cheaper, even if purchase intent may be lower. When you copy a campaign, do you copy its history as well? This is like one of those questions that I think really Amazon product developers probably hear our answers and laugh because they're like, no, that's not how that works. So I'm not going to speak to that. I don't really know how it works. I would assume no, when you copy a campaign, it's a pretty fresh start based off the conversion rate data of that keyword in that exact moment. But I don't really know. I'm not an engineer. All right. Should I follow exact Amazon suggested bid? Doesn't really matter if we're being honest. You're going to adjust your bid based off your conversion rate and your ACoS goals. SB can be more expensive because of less placements, 100%. Are there any helpful tools out there that actually break down source of other traffic? Your store page somewhat breaks this down into sponsor brands or other traffic, but I don't think it goes any more detailed than that. If anyone is an external traffic expert, feel free to answer. What are the best ways to track your traffic sources? Individual ASIN attribution is already out. It was released in the last 48 hours. It's not necessarily calculating spend. It's calculating ASIN attribution for sales. Let's see. Day parting should help somewhat with decreasing spend on high bid, low traffic hours, and funnel spend towards high traffic, high conversion hours. Yeah, somewhat. I'll argue this point pretty frequently. If anyone's actually dove into the stream data, it's pretty interesting, but Amazon's such a high purchase intent model. No one is going on to Amazon to just hang out. They're not watching videos on how to use the product. If a customer's on Amazon at midnight, they're still typically shopping. So your conversion rate may be absolutely terrible from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., but there's a good opportunity people are adding to cart at night and purchasing the next day. So anything with stream is incremental, in my opinion. We dived in and looked at a ton of data across a ton of different accounts. Another thing that I think is going to influence your stream data and day parting is once everyone starts day parting, you're not going to be able to predict bids. Right now, it's easy to say, hey, conversion rate's highest at noon and CPCs are lowest at this point. But the moment everyone starts implementing day parting, it's going to just balance out. So I just think Amazon's too high purchase of intent model in my opinion, but that's a fun conversation. I would love to argue that elsewhere. How do you calculate the spend necessary to get on top 3? Impression share is a great way to do this. You can forecast out your minimum spend needed to win the top 3 placements based off impression share. It's a really easy formula you can do. Shoot me a message offline and I can help you out with that. Where do you find the category average? All right, I'll hop into this. One quick thing, I wanted to look at favorite external traffic. So right now, Google is 51% of the answers, TikTok has 29%, Facebook 11%, YouTube is 9%. Not my area of expertise. So if anyone's an expert in this area, I would love to talk. We have personally been looking at Google to Amazon traffic and what it looks like to qualify and track that. It seems pretty easy to set up, but definitely a lot to learn in external traffic. So, all right, back to the chat. How do I know what my category conversion rate is? Now, again, if you want the full video, it's on YouTube. I don't want to take up our time too in depth. We're already an hour in, have a lot of questions I want to get to, but how to better understand conversion rate using brand metrics and search query. So brand metrics is one of the first places I start. It's actually been out for quite some time. This is where it's at within your advertising console. Search within categories to get more granular. So if anyone's played around with brand metrics, sometimes their category suggestions are pretty broad, but you can actually go in there and search within your category to get really, really precise. So that's one thing I love to do. I will get really precise into my category. I like looking at a month's worth of data unless I'm looking at specific time trends. And what this actually shows us is our organic and retail data for the category, for our brands and our category average and typically category top. So as you can see here, my category conversion rate is 32% within cheese slicers. Category average is 22%. That's a really quick high level indicator. I should be driving more traffic because I'm converting better than average. Now, if you're in a broader category, you can actually go to category top here and you're going to see exactly how much your top competitors are spending. But I went to a really, really, really specific category here, so I'm not getting that data. Let me grab some water real fast. All right. So as you can see, our category data is better. Our brand conversion rate is better than our category conversion rate from that level. Now let's look at search query for the exact same product. We're going to go into brand analytics. We're going to check out the new search query performance. And we're going to see, hey, for the cheese slicer, what is our conversion rate relative to the total conversion rate of the category? Now, this is not exportable yet, so you got to get really creative. There's really good tools for exporting data, or you can just screenshot it, upload it into Microsoft Excel. But what we're looking for is search term level data conversion rates. So we can see that our cheese slicer total conversion rate for the category is 13%. Again, we're just pulling that data, total count clicks, total count purchases. Now, let's look at the exact same data for our brand. So we're looking at brand count clicks and brand count purchases. We can see we're converting at 18.5%. So if we compare that data, we are converting much, much better than category on the search term level. We overlaid our brand metrics data with our search query data. Everything looks good. This is an indicator that we're now going to look into our advertising console, see how expensive this keyword is, what's the impression share, how are we converting, and then moving forward with a decision on whether or not to invest in a ranking campaign. And yeah, here we are. Everything looks super good. Now, I think the next level, I don't have this in here, but I think the next level that the agencies and the brands that can figure this out are going to be in a good position is then overlaying again that brand share data in a scalable fashion. So it's like, yes, we set up our ranking campaign. We're driving additional volume. Now, is our brand share increasing? That's going to be the key, I think, to successfully running ranking campaigns and feeling justified in our decisions, because either our brand share is going to stay the same or it starts increasing relative to our organic rank. And then again, the thing that I like about brand share is it actually pulls in what your category is doing. So it's a good indicator. Even if you don't run any ranking campaigns, if your brand share is decreasing, maybe it's because the actual category size is changing, things like that. Maybe new competitors entered the category. I think it's really important to kind of justify that. So I believe that is all we have here. If you're interested in getting in touch and running an audit, go to betterams.com. You can fill out our auditing survey. Again, this is recorded. Everything will be uploaded. We're going to give everyone the slides. But if you have any questions about any areas of Amazon advertising, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And thank you all so much for listening in. So let's see what kind of fun questions we get out of this. How do you transition to new campaigns in a catalog where structure and targeting is all over the place? Can I do a little hashtag quartile shout out here? You know, one thing I will recommend is I do not recommend bulk pausing and bulk launching completely fresh because it typically hurts the brand. So everything we do, we try to do in the brand's best interest. So if we get an account that's an absolute terrible structure, the first thing we're going to do is download all the search term reports, and we're going to start building out the appropriate campaigns covering all of our core strategies. We're going to keep the old campaigns running, at least the ones that are, within our ACoS goals. And anything that's bad, we'll go ahead and pause. But then we're going to slowly start introducing these new campaigns at a cadence that the brand is comfortable with. We have really good systems for this. One of our most recent brands is 50,000 apparel SKUs. And we have systems in place to basically take all of the search terms and bucket them into the right categories. But as a brand manager, I have seen that if you launch too quickly, brands get stressed out because spend and sales are changing and not what they're used to. If you pause everything, it's typically just not good. So we always recommend a slow transition just in terms of brand health. How do you track placement holding, dropping placement when you pause ads to avoid cannibalization? There's a lot of tools that can do this. So Helium 10 and PackView both track sponsored rank. So that's something I would consider. You can also pull your impression rank. So sponsored product impression share report gives you sponsored product impression rank. So that's something you'd say, hey, if my impression rank drops, and then I also see that decrease in organic sales, you can attribute those and tie them together. But I would probably recommend having to use a software or a tool for that. What are you doing if a product is not really loved by customers? With ads, we can increase visibility, but not desirability. This is a fantastic question, and it sounds super simple, but with Amazon advertising, we have very little control over the product detail page and the first image. And what this means is we can drive traffic all day long. I can increase your spend, I can increase your impressions, but if you are not converting, there's not a lot I can do. I'm not running Facebook ads where I can have an amazing video that convinces someone to convert. I'm advertising your listing, and I can't adjust that very, very much. So if you have a product that customers don't love, it is our job to deliver that bad news instead of wasting money. And it's not an easy conversation to have, but that's where things like brand metrics and search query are super valuable, because you can show them the data and say, hey, you're converting 10% less than your category. We need to fix something before I spend more money that's just going to go down the drain. How do you see what time of day conversions or clicks are coming in? Amazon marketing stream. So this is a really fun fact. A lot of people don't realize this data was never provided in Amazon up until like 3 months ago. So anyone who was making adjustments in your account based off time of day was not calculating adjustments based off first party data. Well, that is so, let that sink in. That is insane. They're taking third party data and trying to make adjustments within your account, claiming day parting without actually being able to see the data. Amazon released Amazon Marketing Stream a few months ago to solve this problem. And what it does is it gives us the hourly data. It gives us the hourly time that a click was made and overlays it with the time that that customer ends up converting. And again, think about how many times you add a product to cart and then wait to purchase until your cart's filled. This is super, super important, because with Amazon advertising spend, we may be spending at midnight, but those sales may be driven 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 days later. We don't know that, but Amazon Marketing Stream allows us to see that data. Kevin, I saw you comment this the other day. I really wanted to have this discussion with you because I love diving into day parting, but I can send you some of our marketing stream data we've pulled as an agency, which is really cool to see. I think my main issue with the day parting aspect is CPCs decrease at end of day and in the morning because most people are out of budget, but conversion rate also tanks. So I think Amazon's a pretty good demand model, and that when demand is up, it aligns with CPCs and sales. So it's a fun conversation to have. Doesn't what you said I mean that running out of budget in the middle of the day is counterproductive? If everyone does the same, then CPCs will be much lower at night. Not quite. Because again, demand is lower. That's the key variable people are kind of forgetting. Once demand is much lower, then the same budget is spread across less customers, right? So Amazon always pushes an out of budget report. Anyone who's managing enterprise accounts will hop on with Amazon. They're like, you were out of budget on this product. Like, yeah, but I can lower my CPCs and stay in budget all day, but I'm not winning the highest volume placements. So another thing that, in my opinion, influences this is anyone's looked at placement conversion rates. Placement conversion rates are typically much, much higher at top of search. And that's because it's the highest buying intent. People aren't window shopping. They're clicking and they're typically buying. So again, Pablo, I'm still running this keyword. It's running in my other campaigns. I'm getting 100% coverage, but one of those campaigns is focused on volume conversion rate, and another one of those campaigns is strictly focused on efficiency. So yeah, it's an interesting one to dive into. Let's see. Drop questions in the chat. I don't know how much longer we'll go because it feels like we answered quite a bit of the questions throughout the presentation. If I missed them, also feel free to re-ask them. A part 2 in a mastermind session. Taylor, if you're still on, I would love to ask if everyone would be interested in a community. So this is something we have went back and forth on. I have been wanting to do both like an enterprise community and also just a general Amazon advertising community where we can provide a ton of value. Let us know if you're interested in that. I would love to have the whole team in there, just hopefully getting back to people really quickly, helping answer questions about different softwares, different trends that we're seeing, and just letting people know what's up. So Taylor, if you're still here, please post that poll and we can kind of get some feedback on that. Better AMS. If you say no, my feelings won't be hurt. All right, decent volume there. I think it'd be worthwhile. Okay, going back to questions. Best cat toy on the market. This is the kind of questions I've been looking for. So one of my cats, she's not here. She's usually in all my presentations, actually like absolutely loves feathers. So all the feather toys are just around my house. But I still have to say, her favorite toy of everything is hair ties. So if anyone can find a way to have hair ties that pick themselves up so I don't have to do it, I think that would be a great cat toy. Great question. We have tried everything in our campaigns, but no clicks. What's the reason? So the first thing I would look at is ineligibility of the product. That's a core indicator. A lot of products get denied. If you're on a vendor account, they'll get denied due to pricing issues. If you're on a seller account, they'll get denied because maybe you're just not allowed to advertise that type of product. But systematically, usually it almost always comes down to bid. In all honesty, if it's a new campaign, it's going to take time and it's going to come down to bid. So if you want to test that theory, increase your bid a lot, like way higher than suggested. And again, watch it for a few hours. If impressions start running in, you know it's a bid issue. If you still get 0 impressions, look into eligibility and open up a case. Do you change browse nodes for products of customers if reasonable? We don't manage this area of the business, so I can't give really direct insights. I know it is a hot topic in the private label space about people changing browse nodes and just general categories in order to get seller badges and categories that aren't theirs. But I can't add a lot of value there. Not my area of expertise. Where do you find Amazon Marketing Stream on Seller Central? I will refer you to Dustin. He is our in-house expert. He posts a lot of content in this area on LinkedIn. So send me a message. I can send you his specific YouTube videos on this. Taylor, you can drop them in the chat. He shows you from a developer standpoint how you build out Amazon marketing stream for your brand. If that's not an option, some of the new tool providers, PackView has great resources for Amazon marketing stream. Perpetua also pulls in marketing stream, I believe. So there's great resources on the market for it, but it's all relative to the cost you're willing to pay for that data. I've been kind of pretty adamant that I think day parting's a great resource for the future, but as of right now, the data is not too enlightening. So really consider that when you're considering paying the price of getting that data. What role does listing keyword optimization play in your ranking strategy? I would say a pretty big role, because if you're driving traffic to a listing that's not optimized for organic rank, you're just fighting an uphill battle, right? But that being said, you have products like Johnson & Johnson and Tide and very large enterprise brands that up until this last year never had optimized listings. Now, why did they still rank well? Well, because they're driving more volume than anyone else. They're converting much higher because they don't need to educate a customer to purchase their products, right? Their products are inherently higher conversion rates and they're driving in higher inherent traffic. So 100% listing optimization should be fundamental before you start. But it goes to show that if you pay a lot of money and you drive a lot of volume, you don't have to have the perfect listing. Now, most of those brands are shifting to a key focus on optimization because now their e-commerce, department is justifying it, but that's an important call out. Even if we decrease the bids for cannibalization top products, isn't that going to cut back heavily in revenue and lose the top organic position? Yeah, it's quite possible. Simply Modern posted an amazing case study on this. I'll try to find it and send it to anyone who's interested. You can search their CEO on LinkedIn and find the case study on Twitter. But there's only so much budget, right? Especially on the enterprise side. Like most enterprise brands have, a set $500,000 a month budget for Amazon. So when you're having to decide where to distribute that budget, it's like, do I pay for this keyword I'm already ranked on? Do I pay brand defense? Where do I shift that? And that's where I think getting really clear on your total goals. If it's on just top line revenue increase, then maybe you shift budgets for a period of time into your other long tail keywords. Or again, if you use a different SKU, you can move it over, and that's where it becomes super important. What is your opinion on internal traffic cannibalization? I've seen traffic bounce from one to another campaign. This is a great question as well. This is where we are really strategic about our keywords that we set up and the number of campaigns for them. So we typically don't have like 50 campaigns with the same keyword targeting different ad groups or with different ad groups and different ASINs in them. So we can be pretty clear on that. It's all going to come down to structure, though. That's such a structurally important question to answer. I can't provide a ton of value outside of that. All right, let's see. Hi, Taylor. Do you have any thoughts before I move on?
Well, I just posted a community waitlist link that people can
How did you do that so fast?
Okay.
This is just what you're doing over here? I'm so impressed.
Years of landing page creation. Yeah, it's really simple. Do you see? Everybody should see the button in the bottom left.
Yeah. So for those who are interested, this is something in full transparency I've wanted to do. I post a lot of content on LinkedIn, and that's amazing, but a lot of people can't see it because of the algorithm. And, Taylor's always been like, let's get a course. But I've gone back and forth because it's like, if I do a course, I want everyone to be able to access it. And it's going to take a ton of time to build that out. So something we figured maybe a good middle ground is building a community. So that way I can spend some time answering live questions, giving feedback, Q&As. I think it's important for our team to also get good at answering questions so they can speak to accounts better. So we've discussed this as like a Q1 launch, but nothing's ever happened until this webinar. So you are truly on the very first wait list if you are here.
Also, if you join the waitlist, you'll receive an email that basically says, please confirm that you really want to be on this list. This is just to avoid spam. So you'll see an email and it'll ask you to confirm your subscription to make sure you really want to be on it.
Perfect. Next question. What is the math of optimizing? If your target ACoS is 30%, but your ACoS is 60%, how much do you increase your bid, or how much do you increase your bid? This is relative to how fast you want to focus on efficiency, in all honesty. I don't recommend typically making really aggressive bid cuts because it's going to change performance quite a bit. I have a great 15-minute bid optimization video on YouTube for this. I'm so sorry to keep sitting people off to watch these in-depth videos, but I actually showed the specific formula I used when I got started in Amazon advertising, and I use it to this day to make really quick cuts by hand and help you understand the correlation between CPC and ACoS. So definitely check out that video. I think it's our highest viewed video, so it should be really easy to find. I have too much stock. Goal is to increase top line. What should my strategy be? Let's ask ourselves the main question. How are people finding my listing? If it's Amazon advertising, then your goal is going to be picking your top sales volume keywords and increasing all of your coverage for those. If it's not selling through quick enough, you're going to have to potentially look at external traffic or expanding ad types. DSP is also an option. DSP is a whole different webinar that we have hosted, but it could help you move up the funnel if you've already maxed out velocity within your category. I'm loving all the cat comments. This is fantastic. This is such a great time. I have one cat that will sit here and meow in the background because she has to run up and bring me her fake mouse toy every single day. And every single night, she typically brings it next to my pillow. So I wake up with this fake mouse next to me, or it's on my desk. Like, there's no in between. A 100% mods for the community. This was something that we had a very detailed discussion with of, in my opinion, I would like to have segmented community based off brands that you're managing. Because what I found, and this is just very candid, is when I'm answering questions in a group like a Helium 10 group, the more lower sales volume people that ask questions answer, the less value that the higher sales volume people will get out of it. So then they don't necessarily engage. So you almost need to segment your community by expertise. So that way people are more comfortable engaging, because it's exhausting when you're constantly giving and not getting anything out of it. So we've talked about that. It's a great call out. Any other feedback you have, send them our way. We did host a DSP webinar, actually. It was hosted by our team. It was the first time Justin and I have hosted a webinar. They did fantastic. It was very much entry-level DSP. We've talked about doing kind of a higher level DSP webinar because I have a lot of opinions on DSP. If you have any questions around that, I can hop into that. But we have 80 people left. So if you have any questions, throw them in. If not, we'll probably close this down sometime soon. The future of DSP, that's a great question. I spent a lot of time talking to Amazon's product team at Unboxed about this, and I think DSP is one of the most powerful tools in Amazon. I will say it's gotten a terrible reputation because when Amazon rolled it out, they used it as a way to drive impressions, brand awareness, and spend. So a lot of brands had very negative experiences over it. And a lot of agencies, I find, use DSP as a shiny object to bring brands in without being completely transparent on what type of campaigns they're running, because brands typically can't access their DSP platform. That being said, DSP is incredibly powerful. DSP is Amazon's demand side platform. So within Seller Central or Advertising Console, you have sponsored display. But Amazon has this whole other powerful tool called Amazon DSP, which basically combines Amazon audience insights. So everyone shopping on Amazon, what's their age? What's their demographic? What's their purchase intent? What's their buyer behavior? How frequent are they purchasing? It has all this data with insane targeting. So think Facebook or Instagram targeting combined with Amazon audience insights. That's what Amazon DSP is. You can go incredibly granular. You can say, hey, I want to target every single person who loves cats and who has bought cat litter and who has bought a cat toy and is between the ages of 18 and 23 within the last 365 days, but has never viewed my listing. That's how granular you can get. And that's where it becomes incredibly powerful, because you can segment your data in a way that's absolutely insane. But with that, it also becomes a very, you have to be very transparent with what DSP can do, because you can't see the data. Brands don't get access. It's not like an addition to your Seller Central. So you have to work with people you definitely trust. What I always say is PPC is attracting customers who are already going to be on Amazon. They typed in your product. They're purchasing anyways, someone within your category. DSP is going out and getting customers and acquiring those customers. Has DSP improved? 100%. One, it's improved, but two, DSP is really easy to F up, if we're being completely honest. Like, a lot of brands use it in a way that's not appropriate for a lot of agencies use it in a way that's not appropriate. They go too aggressive top of the funnel. They target, let me serve an ad to every single cat lover in the world, and then they wonder why performance is bad. Or on the flip side, they're saying, hey, let me just remarket everyone who's already viewed my listing, which inflates ROAS and doesn't increase sales. So DSP is only as good as your ability to run it, and it's only appropriate for certain brands. So I'll save some of these DSP questions. A lot we could dive into there. What's your onboarding new client process look like? If they're running PPC campaigns, how do you restructure them? So this is a great question. Typically, before ever working with a brand, we audit them. So anyone who's familiar with our process, we audit all brands, and we probably say no to more brands than we say yes to, especially right now, because not everyone needs an agency. And I know it's really easy to think that you do need an agency because it's really complicated. But we audit, and what we audit for is advertising efficiency, TACoS, match type usage, impression share, ad type usage, all these things. And then we really focus on 80-20. What's the smallest thing we can do that's going to make the biggest difference, right? We don't want to pause all your campaigns. We don't want a hard transition, because that's not in your brand's best interest. So we typically slowly roll out a new campaign structure that aligns with your overall goals and KPIs. We don't do what we think you should do. We do what you need. Like, we have that conversation, what's in your best interest, and we work from there. Why do we pay for PPC just to get data or something else? If you can clarify that question, that would be amazing. Any other questions? We'll do a last call, 10-minute countdown. If you want to join our community, check the button in the bottom left. This is brand new, and hopefully it gets done because we're announcing it now. Do you hire people who don't live in the US? This is a great question. We do have an international team, primarily because we have international brands. So we like to align our time zones with the brands that we are onboarding. It's not incredibly easy having brands in Europe and then working in the US. So we try to align advertising specialists really, really closely with what our brands need, in terms of, are you more of an analytical brand? Then we're going to have a more analytical account executive. Are you needing more, brand awareness building and strategy? Then we're going to put someone on your account who's more used to that. We're probably less SOP oriented than a lot of agencies, because we want to lead with strategy, education, and relationship. DSP, do you have control on the creative? Yes. Taylor, do you want to answer more about DSP creatives and the options that are possible? What, dynamic? Just one of them just got deprecated. I don't remember which one.
Was it dynamic e-commerce? I don't.
Rex maybe got deprecated.
Well,
The answer is yes. You do
has it
control
got
your creative. You can have native ads that are very similar to what you see within search results. That's typically going to convert best. Or if you want to move up the funnel, you can have custom creatives. So if you're ever scrolling Amazon and you see Gatorade or Mucinex or these very large brands that have ads that look like lifestyle images, that's DSP. Dynamic got deprecated. Nice. This is why we need a mastermind. So many people in the chat are adding so much value. Hey, let's talk about this. Someone asked, do you offer services to $100,000 sales per year businesses? There is a point in your business where I don't think you should outsource your PPC. And I think if you're doing less than $50,000 a month, you probably shouldn't outsource your PPC. If you're doing in between 50 to 100,000, that's where I say you typically need a software to start optimizing your bids and harvesting your keywords, or maybe a really good virtual assistant or just someone in-house hiring. Now, if you're launching a ton of ASINs, if you're managing external marketplaces or retail media or your Shopify site, then this is where you're going to start looking at outsourcing, right? Because you have a lot going on that you need managed. But we personally typically don't offer services to brands that are doing less than 100,000 in sales a year. We wouldn't recommend outsourcing either. It's not in your best interest to pay someone to manage. It's not that hard. You can automate a lot of your PPC at this phase. Aw, so much nice feedback. Also, I want to give a really big shout out to Better AMS YouTube and Better AMS LinkedIn. This is where we post most of our content. And we love feedback. If you reach out and ask questions, someone on the team will almost always try to get you an answer. So follow our whole team on Better AMS is typically pretty active on LinkedIn. And then on YouTube, it's a core focus to get better at posting YouTube content this year. There's just only so many hours in the day when you're providing content and focusing on this. So definitely follow us on both of those. Give us a shout out if you need anything. And we are just super grateful for the community we've built here. Oh, there's more questions coming in. Okay. Are you happy with PackView? This is a fun one. So I have personally audited and vetted most of the softwares in the space, so I can give a lot of good feedback on software. One thing I will say is your software is only as good as your ability to use it. This is incredibly, incredibly important to understand because a lot of the softwares are set up for different long-term goals. PackView is, I would say, one of the most in-depth software I've seen in this space. Their vision is providing as much data as possible. They have a cross-retailer dashboard. They're tracking share of voice across Instacart, Walmart, and Amazon all in one viewpoint. They're combining your DSP and search data all in one view. It's really insanely powerful. But I would say if you are a small seller, then it could be really overwhelming to hop into because there's unbelievable amounts of things that you can do. So all that to say is PackView as a software is amazing. But again, your software is only as good as your ability to use it. Intent-wise, Serena's another incredible tech builder. Intent-wise is very similar where they've chosen to add a lot of data that you can use. I would say Intent-wise is a little bit more scalable potentially. Intent-wise has done a really great job of building out automations. So you may not have as much control as what you would like, but it makes up for it in its scalability. They do some awesome TACoS reporting. They're working a lot on the kind of the AMC side to correlate all of your data in terms of like path to purchase. So another fantastic software. All right. I feel good about this. I still have my voice. It's a Friday. We got through Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
We did it. We did it. Again, the recording will be posted, so probably Monday. So be a little bit patient, please, and thank you.
You're going to get about 28 emails over the weekend.
Yeah, guaranteed. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for coming, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. We don't know when it will be, but we should have an announcement for a community at some point soon. So thank you all again. This was amazing.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend. See ya.